Really astonished to introduce and super excited to introduce Dylan Stanley, and he is. One sec, my I want to make sure to get your title right as well, Dylan. Okay. There we go. He is the Public Relations Manager and Copywriting Coordinator for the Muny in St. Louis. And Megan, is your last name pronounced Ketcherside?
It's Ketcherside.
Ketcherside, okay. Mm-hmm. Megan Ketcherside, and she is the Publicity Manager for the fabulous Fox Theater, and they are going to introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about what they do on a day-to-day basis, and then they have an activity for us, which I'm really excited to see what it is. And just a reminder, as I said in the group chat, if you can have your cameras on, please do. If not, we completely understand. We're not going to force you or anything, but if possible, please do, and please have yourself on mute for the time being.
Oh, thank you so much, Kiara, for that wonderful introduction. Megan, do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
I can go first, no problem with that.
Okay. No.
As Kiara said, my name is Megan. I am the Publicity Manager at the fabulous Fox Theater. I've been in this role about, I think, 7 or 8 years. I've been with the Fox since 2008. I started there right after college. After I graduated, I started as the receptionist. I wanted to make sure that I wanted to work for an arts entertainment industry. I have a background within the arts, so I wanted to make sure that I kind of put two loves together and work for an industry that I really loved. So I started like I said, as the receptionist, and kind of worked myself into the marketing department. I graduated with a business and administration degree with emphasis in management and a dance minor. So when I was freshly out of college, I thought I was going to own my own dance studio. Obviously, things kind of, you go down different paths, which I'm so lucky to be where I am at now. And so I wanted to do that, but I was like, I need to figure out kind of what I want to go into. But I know that my passion is dance and the arts. And so getting at the Fox, I was able to see as a whole the organization. As a receptionist, I was able to kind of deal with every department. So it really gave me an overall understanding of how the organization worked as a whole, but then also what I actually really wanted to go into. And then I started in marketing as a marketing assistant, and then went up into the publicity manager. So I do all the publicity for all of our touring shows, as well as institutional publicity for the Fox Theater. I don't know if I missed anything, but.
No, that was great. Oh my gosh. I feel like every time Megan and I do one of these, I learn something new about Megan. I'm like, oh, that's fun. And I didn't know that. I am Dylan Stanley, the Public Relations Manager and Copywriting Coordinator for the Muny. It's a long email signature and an even longer business card. It's double-sided. Just kidding. I have been with the Muny since 2015. I started as a development intern, and then I parked cars for donors, answered phones, ran mail, did whatever needed to be done, ushered a little bit. You want to run mail. If you ever get the opportunity to run mail, you meet everyone in the building. And in 2017, I assumed the role of Public Relations Manager because I had ran mail to our then Director of Marketing and Communications. And he asked if I had a passion for mail running, and I said, no, I really have a passion for PR, and he welcomed me aboard. I have a bachelor's in public relations with a minor in theater and dance from SIUE, so the sister school. I know you guys are the OG, but I was SIUE, and I also have a master's in PR from SIUE as well, which I received in 2018. My job is very similar to Megan. I consider her a very close colleague and a really good friend. I do all of our public relations, so both show specific and institution specific. So anytime you see us on the TV, radio, print, something online, a billboard, anything like that, I have played a part in that. So that is the PR end of my role. The copywriting coordinator position, as we all know, we do a lot of writing in PR land. And so really what that is I am a AP checker in the building. So our AP style guide, woo, who has theirs? Mine's somewhere nearby. So I just make sure that we're all on the same page, whether that's the box office development, if our CFO needs help, our CEO needs help. I make sure anything going out that doors is not only Associated Press style guide, but that we're all on the same page and saying the same thing. Let me check the chat. I know some stuff popped up. Oh yeah, can everyone hear? Okay.
Yes.
Got it. Okay, wonderful. But yeah, so that's a little what I do. Megan, do we want to tell them the difference of producing and presenting?
Yeah, that would be great. I think as many years I've been at the Fox, I'm still learning a lot about the presenting side of it. It's a whole nother ball game. And it's so interesting to, we do have presenters that the Fox has kind of a umbrella underneath it, has Fox Theatricals, where we do present shows on Broadway. And I'm still learning about that, but at the Fox Theater itself, we don't necessarily present the shows like the Muny does. So the way that we have our shows, they are actually touring Broadway shows that once the show has either played on Broadway or it's still playing on Broadway and being so successful, they're going to put it on tour. So it goes to everything, the casting, lighting, everything goes through the New York office, and then they kind of build this production and then put it on the road, put it in semis and say, let's go to all the cities that we can go to and let's bring it across the country. Because a lot of people can't go to New York to be able to see the show. So that's how they can bring their shows to the whole country. So with us, we have I'm kind of the liaison between our local press and the press agents that the production has hired to kind of put the show on in so many different markets. You want to make sure that the branding and everything is the same. So they kind of overlook to make sure that every city and every PR person and marketing department for the specific venues are taking this and making sure that the branding is completely throughout the whole country is the same. So I have contacts that I work with. Usually a lot of the times they are in New York, sometimes they're in LA or Chicago, and they kind of just give us the information about the show. A lot of the times press releases are already kind of given to you or kind of already have a rough draft, and you kind of put your localization in there. Not all the time, but a lot of times they do have that. They just want to make sure that kind of like Dylan said, that the message is the same throughout. And so the liaison kind of just sets up those interviews. That's kind of where Dylan and I have the same kind of jobs that we do. We just take those actors or whoever, producers or directors, and take them out on like a press run. And so we take them out and go to different local TV stations or radio stations while they're in town. Dylan has a little bit of a luxury. He has them a little bit longer than I do. If we have a 2-week run, I usually just have them for that first week for press. Usually they don't do press in that second week. I know Dylan has them, they're usually in rehearsals and stuff before, so he has a little bit of more time, but not really that much considering how much they do over there at the Muny and how everything overlaps. But so we kind of just have that, 1 or 2 days to go out, do as many interviews as we can while the show is in town. Obviously you can do advanced press too. That's usually like phone interviews. A lot of the times that's print, just because we like to actually have, before when it was safe to have in studio interviews with those radio stations and TV stations. They just make for better interviews rather than phone interviews or, Skype. But obviously we do what we have to do now. And so, yeah, setting up those interviews is one of the biggest things that we do. Obviously, press releases, making sure everybody knows about the information. and just making sure that that liaison between the national production and the local press. I know that with us, you know, obviously because it is a touring company, we don't have any creative control over the shows. So that's where it's really different. So we kind of had this handbook of what the show is and everything. So a lot of the actors or directors are already kind of uh, trained on what to say, their talking points, all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of again a national kind of thing that comes from the Broadway office in New York. So a lot of that stuff is kind of just given to us, whereas Dylan has more of the creative control over it, and he can kind of explain that a little bit more.
Oh, that's awesome. Megan, your job's so fun. I swear. I know it's kind of a fan club, but how many of you have been to the Fox? Okay, a couple. Yeah, isn't it stunning? It's gorgeous. I want it to be my house. Like, just to have people over. Be like, oh, this old thing. It's beautiful. How many people have been to the Muny? Well, okay, that is a group vote, 0. Okay, so we are outside. So we're 11,000 seats outside in the middle of Forest Park. So it's a little bit different in that we produce our own shows. So we get to pick our shows based on the licensing houses, right? So if the rights are up to do Superstar or Grease or Beauty and the Beast, you know, we'll be like, great, that's awesome. We have 7 shows each season over a 9-week period. So we typically run from June to August, but with COVID-19, we're starting about a month later in July. Fingers crossed that we're allowed to bring the Muny back this summer, and we'll run through Labor Day in September this year. But we pick the shows, we get to create the artwork, so the logos and the colors and the branding for each show. We get to craft the copy of the show. So if it's like 7 Brides for 7 Brothers, right, it's kind of a classic versus Kinky Boots. One of them, obviously you're not on the Oregon frontier for one of those shows. So we get to do that and kind of pick our talking points. And out of the people we cast, who do we want to bring forward? Do they have a history with the show? Do they have a special story? Is it their Muny debut? Those are always my favorite interviews, is the Muny debuts, because it's just cool. It's really, really cool. They're used to performing indoors. So we not only pick our shows, we cast our own shows from Chicago to New York to Los Angeles to even here in St. Louis. We hold local auditions. And then we build our own shows. So we build our own sets. We don't just like rent the hairspray can. We will build the hairspray can and we will have it for ourselves. And then we rehearse our own shows, and they only get performed in St. Louis. So it won't tour anywhere. So it's just for St. Louis audiences. Typically it's a 7-day run. So that's really, really short, but you're playing to a house of, we have 11,000 seats, 1,500, which are free each night on a first come, first serve basis, has been since we opened. We always say a theater for the people, built by the people. But, what's awesome about that is it's quick and it's furious, but it's ours. We only have 11 days to rehearse. So that's kind of crazy. Once you're cast, you're sent your script and your score. So your speaking part and your singing part. And when you come, there's about 60 people, all hands on deck, and 11 days to mount Sweeney Todd or On Your Feet. And then they perform it for 7 days, 9 if it's a kid's show like Mary Poppins or Beauty and the Beast. And then it's gone. So it's kind of like the magic of musical theater, right? It's a shared experience, it's community, but it's only for St. Louis at the Muny. So we get a lot of creative freedom over, as far as like casting and logos and what we get to do and what we don't get to do. We do have to stay in the vein of the Muny. We are kind of we're in our 103rd season, and you do kind of have to be mindful of it is very family friendly. It is very like kind of that old friend that's been around. So you do try to stay in that voice of like a theater for everybody. There's something here for everyone. But that's kind of, I think, the biggest difference between what Megan and I do. So do you like theater? I mean, now that we're into this, let's just be real. Does everyone enjoy theater and entertainment PR? Yeah. Okay. Good. You're in the right place. I mean, I know we're like 15 minutes in, but great. Okay. Any questions so far? Oh yeah.
I have a question. um, is it hard to do PR for this company or like that company? Like, is it hard to do?
Oh, that's great question, Madison. Megan, I'm okay going first if you are.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think with, doing PR in general, it is definitely an around the clock gig. The story will go without you, right? Like TV and radio and printing presses wait for no one. So you are either available or you are not. So sometimes the schedule can be a little rigorous, especially if you're in season. Right, as the theater, you typically present like a main stage season. So yeah, I mean, it's hard in that way that the schedule is demanding, but you usually have a passion for it and you want to do it and you want to give your best and put your best foot forward. I think the only time it gets hard maybe is when you enter kind of like a crisis mode. For the most part, theater is very fun, right? We get to be storytellers. We get to bring people's attention to something that maybe they don't realize they would love. And we get to kind of invite people into a space that they can share a story or see someone else's life and escape for a little bit on stage. And it's really a communal experience because, right, you're all rooting for the same characters. You're all really upset at the same villains. You're all really happy when the victory, happens. So it's really this beautiful thing. But also, I think it does kind of get hard sometimes when things get a little sticky and a little tricky. That's when your job does get a little like, Megan, what would you say?
I think I agree with you 100%. I think that we are very lucky in what we do because, like, just from my experience, it is more of such a positive thing that you're always working on. It's always positive stuff. Obviously, with anything, there's going to be negative. But I think if we were in a different industry, as in like the medical field or something else than doing PR, obviously, I think you would have that negativity, or not negativity, but the negative aspect of your job and the stuff that you have to deal with to be more on the negative side, just because that's kind of the nature of that industry. Just because a lot of the times you're trying to put out fires rather than, showing off a rainbow. I don't know,
Right.
because ours is just like, it's so stuff that we can celebrate. A lot of the times we always have good news and good things to celebrate. I think that, the schedule definitely is something that can be hard because you are, weekends, anytime that somebody has a story, it doesn't matter. They might call you that day and they want to do it for that evening and you just have to make it work. And, we spoke about how kind of different our jobs are with Dylan season and my season. A lot of the times are opposite. So Dylan has a vigorous summer of him working, being a lot of the shows and everything. And then mine's kind of that school year. It kind of works like a school year, our season does. So it kind of usually starts in the fall and ends in the spring. So it's really cool that, Dylan and I are very lucky where we get to work on other projects together. And love Dylan, and we work really well together because, for one, we just work really well together, but for two, it's just because our seasons are so opposite that we understand that. So like we can work with each other where I'm like, I know that he's swimming and barely trying to get through. I'm going to kind of like help him out. And then same thing with me when he's like, you know what, she's got 4 weeks of Wicked. I'm going to take this one. So it's definitely, great to have people in the industry that are there for you as well and kind of will help you in those times that when it does get hard. But I think that we are very lucky that a lot of the times, besides crisis management, which Dylan talked about, that's about the only time that really it gets to be very, very stressful. Obviously, it's always a challenge to try to market or, do PR for different shows. But I think that challenge isn't such a negative thing. I think that's always like inspiring and pushes me a lot of the times. But I think we're very lucky.
Yeah, I agree. That's a great question, Madison. Thank you for asking that. Does Maggie, what's your question?
I just want to pull a little bit of information out of what you guys just said. So what I'm hearing is to find a buddy for PR outsourcing. Because it sounds like you guys are making it work, and I'm looking at Kiki over here. We can be PR outsourcing buddies.
Yeah.
I think it's great to find somebody in your industry that you can just like, you know, either just kind of unload on. Sometimes you just need to do that and you're like, oh, this is so stressful. I just need to talk it out. And sometimes even just talking with somebody that understands what you're going through, they don't even have to say a word. They just have to listen. And then you kind of figure it out on your own just by talking it out. But then also there's somebody there that can give you feedback and can give you that encouragement or advice when you need it, because they work with the same people that you do. Their perspective of somebody might be different than yours. And I know we've had many conversations where we've had same perspective of people that we've worked with, but then we've also had completely different perspectives. And I think that helps you to understand the person, and that, you know, there might be something that you don't know that you're just like, oh, that makes sense. Now I can work with him better because I have that information. But definitely, I think, and it also helps too, I think, at least for me, and I know Dylan probably can talk about this too, is to talk to people that do your same job in different markets. Because, you know, St. Louis is a completely different market than, you know, Memphis or, you know, Denver or whatever else, whether they're smaller or bigger or just geography, obviously. It's just, it gets a good perspective just because they're completely in a different city than you are as well.
Yeah. Oh, Maggie, great. I do that too. I'm like, what I'm hearing is, and I like, right. I love that tool. Anybody else have any questions before we slide into our activity?
Yeah, I have another question. Is it hard to market shows?
Yeah, that's a great question. Megan, do you want to tag in?
I think there are different shows that are a little more challenging. I would agree, yes. I think also it depends on, for at least for the Fox, how many times the show has been through that market, you know, whether or not it's just, you know, came a year ago, or whether the Muny just played it, or another venue, the Rep just did it, or whatever. Just knowing that, you know, how long has it been in the market? You know, is this the, you know, I think we've had a Christmas Carol like 20 something times, but it's just, you know, knowing what is going to sell. And like for Christmas Carol, it's, you know, it's a timeless show that you can come to the Fox at Christmas time, see it decorated, and come with your family. It's a family oriented kind of show. So knowing those bullet points of certain shows, but then also I think I spoke about this before, that the more challenging a show is, I think the more fun it's to work on it, just because then you're not like, oh, this is the same show again, we're doing the same thing. You know, you really push yourself to be creative and think about new ways to, you know, to partner with new people in your city, or finding new angles. I know in one show, not that the show was, you know, hard to market, but we were able to find an actor that, like, he, you know, while he was traveling with the tour, he had a donut blog. Like his whole blog was to like go to different donut shops around the country. So it's like finding those little like jewels and being like, oh, let's do this. Like, we've never done this before. So I think even though it is challenging, because you know, it could be that you have to educate the audience because the show's never been here before, or it's a show that has been here before. I think those challenges sometimes are what kind of makes the job really fulfilling.
I agree. I totally agree. That's a great question, Madison. You're going to have, I feel like, those sparkly, easy seat filling shows like Little Mermaid and Jersey Boys. You know, people want to go. And then you get a show every so often that you're like, oh my. No, you know, but you get to dive into it. You get to kind of see, what do you find interesting? I always try to approach it as the theater goer first. Like, is the story going to captivate me? Are the costumes worth it? Maybe it's the tech, you know, like for Hamilton, the tech itself is a show, you know, within the show. So maybe that's the thing. And then I try to come at it with a PR lens. Like, okay, what would the press find sparkly about this? You know, I was like, what would they latch onto? Is it a really fancy star? Did Elton John write the music? You know what I mean? Is the person who won the Tony for Best Lead on, coming to the Muny, or are they going on the road with the show? Like I try to do it kind of in stages like that. But yeah, sometimes it can be difficult. Not every show is for everybody. So, but as the PR person, every show is for you to tell other people about. So that is how that works. I think we have maybe time for one more question before the activity. Oh yeah, Haley?
Just a quick question. What have been some of your guys' favorite shows that you've worked on in the past?
Oh, this is such a fun question. Do you want to go first, Megan?
Well, it's such a hard question too. I think it's, for one, there's so many shows, but for two, it's because I have to take away shows that I love, you know what I mean? For like a personal kind of, like a relation to them. But I'm trying to think. We did some crazy stuff with Wicked. I mean, Wicked's just a huge blockbuster show, but like they have their own hot air balloon, and of course they do, and so we did a hot air balloon, and we were able to do promotions at the balloon race a few summers ago, where I wasn't lucky enough, but a couple of my colleagues were able to actually go up in the balloon during the race, which was amazing. I'm probably glad I didn't go or wasn't there, because I don't know if I would be able to go up that high, but it was such a cool experience for them. They also had, like, they wanted to do a corn maze. And so we were able to, I think in Bethalto, we were able to do like a corn maze of, I think it was Glenda, like, the logo or something like that. And they were able to make that. So we were able to, go out to the corn maze and promote that. We did some weird stuff with Come From Away. We had, it was like Gander the Commander. We had a suit. So I think he was like this duck thing that one of my colleagues dressed up in and went to different TV stations. And then I guess there's in the show, and I don't know if this is in real life, I'm assuming it is, but in Gander, there's a like tradition that you're supposed to kiss the cod. And so they had like this press, they call it like a press prop of this cod, and that, we went around and had people kiss a cod, like random stuff that makes sense when you see the show. But we were trying to go around asking, Tim Azell and other people to kiss the cod. It was great, because it was like, this is the most random weird thing, but it was like turned out to be a great video. And just I think the biggest thing overall is just meeting all the people that you get to do press with, because they're all from, around the country. Obviously, a lot of them live in New York now, but they're, grew up throughout the whole country. So it's like learning their background and their story of how they become, for one, an entertainer, and two, on that specific show. So it's great just to meet them, and then to learn about their past.
Yeah. Oh, that's so fun.
Weird stuff. That's all. That just comes to mind. There's probably so much stuff that I'm like forgetting, but that's just some crazy stuff.
Yeah, you definitely start to block it out after a while. You're like, oh, we did that? Oh my God, I was there. What time did we go? Yeah. To answer your question, Haley, for me, I really enjoyed a chorus line the last time we did it at the Muny. Not only is it a story about like performers performing, which is wonderful and fun, but the original Christine in that show, Christine with a K, not Christine Daae, in Phantom, is a St. Louis gal. And so that role was originated by one of STL's own. And oddly enough, her husband worked in our archives at the time we did the show. So I got a hold of her and I was like, hey, would she want to do like an interview? And it could be like her. And then we had this former Muny kid and teen named Madison Johnson, who was portraying the role that year, and kind of do a then and now. And just sitting in on those interviews with the Belleville News Democrat, with Lynn Vinhouse, of course, Megan, who used to be their theater critic, she gave us a 2-page spread about not only the show, but also like how the story evolved and how that St. Louis gal was kind of reincarnated with Madison, and that it was kind of like a role coming back home. So I'll never forget that. That was a huge, like, I just loved reading that. I was obsessed with that. And my first show I did PR for, I'll never forget it. It's The Wizard of Oz. And we had this crazy idea to interview Toto. And I thought, if this is the bar, I'm in. Like, if this is where it begins. And of course, it was with Heidi Glaus, Channel 5. Oh, God love her. She was totally game to interview the dog. And the dog keeper, a very technical term. I think she was billed as something else in the program, but her name was Rochelle. And so I'll never forget those two shows. I thought that was hysterical. And the dog had a double, just in case the dog, it was like Nessa and something else. I forget. Nessa was the main dog, and then it was like Oscar was the backup dog. And so we let that secret out in the interview, and both dogs got to, play around on camera. It was just so fun. I was like, oh, I love my job. So.
And it's so funny, just from you talking about yours, like, it's so funny how a lot of the times our jobs definitely like cross relate too. Because Madison Johnson actually played Hello Dolly at the Fox Theater last season, or I guess it was 2 seasons ago. And we did press with her, and we were able to do this kind of journey of her life in St. Louis, and we were able to do the interview part of it at the Muny. So it's just crazy how our performers definitely perform on both stage. And then, because you said a dog, I don't know how I didn't think of this, but we've talked a lot about show related PR and some institutional related PR that we were able to do for, I think it was St. Louis Bride. We had a baby ostrich that we had on the Fox stage, and we did a part of the photo shoot, like random stuff that you're just like, this is interesting. This is my day. This is how I'm going to spend it. But I wouldn't spend it any other way. It's so great.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I agree. I totally agree. Megan and I have came up with Kiara with an activity. So if you're game to do this, we were kind of going to see, now that we've explained a little bit about what we do as far as like the Fox and the Muny, we were going to take a show and see if you guys had any ideas as far as a campaign, maybe a press tour stop, what you would highlight for a show. And so we have picked Grease, a fan fave, right? Probably seen it at your local community theater 306 times, but can't get away. Not Grease 2, Grease 1. Okay, everybody, we have standards. But so if you just want to take a minute and either write it down on a piece of paper or drop it in the chat, what about Grease? If you were pitching that to the St. Louis market, what would you highlight? Get as creative as you want. I mean, absolutely. If there was no budget, they were in town for a month, everyone was still obsessed with the show, it was selling out. This could be, you have the hottest star in all of the world. George Clooney is Danny in the tour. You know what I mean? You have the coolest set. You could do it on location somewhere. Maybe the costumes are crazy.
Sky's the limit.
Give everybody a few more seconds. Okay, does anybody want to share some of their ideas? Yeah, very good, Madison. Yeah.
I wrote down maybe starring some old actors from the original.
Yes.
So put that out there.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Oh my gosh, even if it was a walk-on role for like the St. Louis stop, or, you could auction off a walk-on role to a donor. That's also fun and sparkly for the development. Yeah.
I also said music with Madison. I feel like because, if we're doing this after COVID, people would want to be dancing. People are gonna want to, like, feel alive again. So I feel like we should focus on the music and have live bands and possibly like guest Bruno Mars, because he's coming back. So
Oh,
Yes, I would watch that. Okay. I was a fan of Grease Live. I know, controversial topic. But I would be in for a Bruno Mars led Grease.
I would highlight the story of Greece and how it's a romance, and maybe have like two star players. I'm a big fan of Gwen Stefani, so maybe
Yeah.
Gwen Stefani and Blake. I would also highlight the costumes and the set and the location and the music as well. And I would also, like, for merchandise, those pink lady jackets. That's people, maybe we can have like people have their pink lady jackets and T-bird jackets and have it like a Rocky Horror thing where they can just like dance around.
Yeah. Oh, Madison, I love that. We can embroider Ain't No Hollin' Back Girl on the back of those. I think they're going to sell.
I love it. I
yeah.
love it.
Good idea. Anybody else? These are really good.
I have one kind of going off of Maggie's, and this was because I was a stage manager in high school for our Grease show, actually.
Great.
And we did something kind of smaller like this that I thought would be cool on like a bigger scale, like if we put it like with Maggie's, and we literally had like a break in one of the shows where we would go out to the cafeteria and literally had some of the actors or stage crew dressed up like in all of like the pink lady and the poodle skirts and like the whole get up and doing like the roller skating cafe around to skate around and like bring people like drinks and stuff like that. So I thought something like that along with like the dance floor with Maggie's or something like that would be cool.
Oh, that's great. You guys are getting into some promotion, some like pre-show festival bands, car shows. I like it. Anybody else?
I'm definitely along the same line, and like I'd love to combine Mike's because like mine was like to do like a flash mob on Navy Pier, so like to combine it with like Mike and Maggie's and make it almost like this like little music festival on Navy Pier, so like we can incorporate like the ending scene of Grease and almost do like a live version of just that scene, like going into the music festival to have it like, oh, like come check out this like awesome activity before you go see the show.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah.
These are great ideas.
I know. So we know who to call next time we do Grease. We're all going to reconvene. Yeah. And so, I mean, that's kind of what we get to do, like in a fun way, oftentimes in a different capacity, but at a different level. So all of these ideas, you would kind of fit them into the puzzle that is the St. Louis landscape, whether that's with your media, whether that's with vendors, whether that's with maybe corporate partners. You kind of get to flesh out with a promotions person, or with a development person, or, with your director of marketing and communications, what you want to pursue, like, hey, we love the idea of a car show. Let's reach out to, here in town, it would be SEPA for the Muny, SEPA Auto, and they would host it on the top lot, pre-show, boom, get a couple live bands up there to sing, hits from the era. And there you go. Megan, do you have anything to add?
I was just going to say a lot of the times, where I think we went the promotions way, but I know that somebody talked about the pink ladies jacket, and sometimes just the simple task of having a prop to go with a normal, just straight interview can make such a big difference that you wouldn't think. I know that with Kinky Boots, Dylan mentioned earlier that, with the show, the touring show of Kinky Boots, they have a pair of press boots that they go and they have certain people either wear them or just have them, there. Or we've had the ruby slippers with Wizard of Oz. We've had, I'm trying to think what else. So just the visual of having the host wear the pink ladies jacket is something that just, sometimes a straight interview is great and those actors have a lot great things to say, but just to see a host in the thing, in the pink ladies jacket or the leather jacket or that says T-birds on the back or whatever can make such an interview a little more interesting. And it's fun for the interviews the interviewers, because they're, you know, a lot of times they're doing a lot of just straight interviews all day. So when they can dress up or do some fun things like that, they're actually a lot of the times really into it, because it's something new, something fresh, not just sitting there talking with somebody.
Yeah. Oh, I totally agree. I completely agree with Megan. She had alluded to pre-press. So before a show opens, at the Muny, we have those 11 days, and it's really hard because everyone's doing like an equity 10 to 6 with a break in the middle, often in the afternoon at like 1 or 2. And so I'm always asking, like, can I borrow 20 minutes of your lunch? And we typically get a camera crew out. Channel 5 is a show here in town called Show Me St. Louis. And they typically always want to do a thing, kind of like Megan's saying, whether that's like we'll try on the costume, or when Heidi Glass was still there, we flew her on the Mary Poppins track. The first time we did Mary Poppins, we got her in the harness, flew her over the theater. Very, very fun. So it's typically, I mean, it's all a game of relationships, right? So like the sooner you build relationships, the sooner those are quality relationships with press, you realize the key players on TV and radio and in print who are willing to kind of do the fun thing, or who might be interested in doing the fun thing. Because you will totally run across people who will just email you questions and say, like, can you have them fill it out? And I'm like, this is going to be a really boring read. A really boring interview. And then you have the people who are like, well, can I go up in the Glinda bubble? You know, and you're like, okay, sure. You know, like, yes. So that's great. Kiara, I think we're almost at time. I don't want to keep anybody, but if anyone has questions after that, let us know. I'm going to share my email in the chat with everybody. So if you ever want to reach out, have a question, something we didn't cover, please feel free. Please, please, please email me. We can set up a Zoom. We can do a virtual coffee. If you have questions, you know, as far as like, should I go into this, or does this posting look weird, or does my resume sound like I wrote it, or who do you eat with at lunch? Is it scary? Are they nice? I'll answer all that.
I had a quick question. You've talked a little bit about some of the shows are certainly easier to promote than others. And I wonder if you're ever brought in, you and the communications team in general are brought in at the point when you're booking shows or you're choosing which shows to perform for the season. Are you ever consulted, will this show be easier than this show? You know, because at the end of the day, right, like, it is a business. You are trying to like pay the bills and everything. So I wonder if that's ever a consideration.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Justin. I mean, it is commercial theater. So at the end of the day, you're telling a story and you're getting that check, you know, like, that's for sure. Megan, do you want to answer first, or do you?
Yeah, because I think my answer is a little shorter just because it is so different from the Muny. So the Fox, the way that we book our shows, we only have a certain allotment that tours that are actually touring. So we don't have the luxury of being able to have this huge catalog of all these shows that we can like necessarily choose from. So we are, you know, definitely limited to what we can put on our schedule. But I think there is definitely communication with our booking agent, with our president of our ticketing, with our vice president of marketing, kind of all coming together of trying to come up with a season that I think, like Dylan said, would fill, you know, for everybody. We also want to make sure that we're trying to, you know, kind of reach all audiences with all of our shows. So we want to pull in those classic shows, but we also want to bring in new shows that are hot off of Broadway. So we're trying to get a mixture of both, but understanding that, you know, 2 weeks of one show might not be the smartest idea. Maybe we just bring it in for a weekend show. So I think those communications definitely being had with our VP of marketing. So not necessarily with PR. I think on that end, they kind of already have that knowledge of how, you know, PR goes with marketing. It all kind of, she oversees the whole marketing department. So with me, essentially, I'm not a part of those conversations, but somebody in marketing definitely is. But again, we only have a certain amount of shows that we can actually choose from.
Yeah, the Muny is slightly different in the fact that what we get to choose is different than what Megan gets to choose from, right? So it's a little bit about what license is up, maybe not what's like hitting the road or about to hit the road, but what, all these licensing houses that hold titles to shows, it has to be available for us to do. So we start there, and then we do an audience survey in the 6th show of each year, and we give them about 30 options, and it is all over the place. Like, it is the classics. It's stuff they've probably never heard of before in their lives, just to gauge where we are. And then it's also options to write in, which people are hysterical with what they write in. I'm like, okay, when Phantom becomes available to do at the regional level, we'll call. And when Wicked's ready, and they always say Lion King, they're like, you're in a park, just do it. I'm like, are you calling Disney? I know, like, I'll sit in. So it is a little limiting there, but yes, they look at the numbers, especially like the CFO. They will always look at, if it's played the Muny before, what was the bottom line? Like how much did we make, and how many nights did it run, and how many years has it been? We try to space it out on like a 5 to 7 year plan before we repeat shows, right? There's definitely some standards in the canon that we'll come back to, like The Sound of Music. This is the 11th time we've done it, but that's since we've opened our doors, and it's been more than a decade since we've done it. So yes, I mean, to say, does a PR person, I'm kind of in Megan's boat. I'm not in that meeting, but our director of marketing and communications is, as far as like, what's going to be the for sure, like Mary Poppins, sold out, done. Like everyone's going to come, everyone's going to have a carpet bag. They want to see her fly, it's done. And then you get shows like Paint Your Wagon and 1776 and Unsinkable Molly Brown, where you really have to crunch the numbers and see, like, are we rewriting the book? Maybe it's the star, like, who's Molly Brown? Is she going to sell? Like when we do Hello Dolly, Beth Level, everyone loves that show, but the last time we did it, we had Beth Level, Tony Award winner for Drowsy Chaperone on Broadway, and she was the title role. So if you didn't like the show, you probably liked Beth. So yeah. Oh, guys, I miss you already. This was so much fun. I think we're at time.
Yeah, you guys made absolutely perfect time. Like, this is perfection. So thank you for that. Thank you once again, Dylan and Megan. I know I was super happy to connect with Dylan this year, and I'm super happy that you guys were able to come and speak, because I feel like entertainment PR is something that's not often showcased at the university level to PR students. And so I feel like as this something to offer our members and our students is a really great opportunity for us to learn about all the different facets that we can enter and all the different projects and stuff we can work on upon graduation is always a really great opportunity. So thank you guys, and thank you for hanging out with us for an hour, especially on like a Wednesday and a work week. So I definitely appreciate that. I definitely recommend connecting with Dylan. I'll hopefully get to connect with Megan now that I finally have put a face to and an email to her.
Please do.
Dylan was amazing, and Megan seems just as amazing as Dylan is. So I hope you guys definitely take advantage. As we always say, networking is the quickest route, it seems, in PR. So we definitely encourage it, especially with our guest speakers, because they are definitely people to ask about resume corrections, about jobs, about anything you want to know in that type of PR industry. So thank you guys once again. It was so great to have you.
Well, thank you so much for having us.
Of course. That is all that I have for you guys this week. Just a reminder, we do have our PRSSA social on April 7th. That's a week from next Wednesday, right? Yeah. A week. Okay, thank you. It's all naughty. I was like, please tell me I was correct when I said that. So keep an eye out for that. Jamie, correct me if I'm wrong. It's in Bone C, correctly?